Good evening and welcome everyone. My name is Debbie Rutledge and I'm from our local Sugartown Sweet Talkers and we're part of Toastmasters International. I will be your moderator for the evening and I'll also be asking the questions to the candidates. I'd like to remind everyone to please turn off your cell phones before we begin. The washrooms are out this door and around the corner, and in case of an emergency, the emergency exits are back out those doors, around the corner, or out the front entrance. Our evening will be divided into two parts. The first part will run from 5:30 to about 6:55 for the mayoral candidates, followed by the forum for the MD candidates, starting at 7 till about 8:30. This is not a debate format, but one where the candidates can express their views or explain their positions. We'll begin with the rules. The candidates are seated according to what they drew. Each candidate will be given up to 5 minutes to introduce him or herself and present their platform. Speeches will be timed. At 4 minutes, the green light will come on. At 4.5 minutes, the yellow light. And at 5 minutes, the red light. And at this time, I'll ask you to stop. When you're asked a question, you'll be allowed up to 3 minutes to respond. The green light will go on at 2 minutes, at 2.5, the yellow, and at 3 minutes, the red. After the question period, each candidate will be given 3 minutes to wrap up and ask for your support. The green light will go on at 2, at 2.5, the yellow, and at 3 minutes, the red. I'll introduce the candidates in alphabetical order, and then we'll follow for the opening remarks from each candidate. The first candidate is Ken Hoist. The second candidate is Rick Pogniadits, and I messed that up really bad. Papa Dennis. And the third candidate will be Andrew Prokop. We'll start off with Rick. Rick, can you please give your introduction?
Absolutely, thank you. Hello everyone, I am Rick Papadenis, and I'm running to be the next mayor of Taber. The trend across the province is to elect younger, more energetic mayors, from the City of Edmonton's mayor, Don Iverson, to the City of Red Deer's mayor, Tara Veer, and the mayor of Sylvan Lake, Sean McIntyre, all of which I've had the privilege of having great discussions with in the past. Now a little bit about myself. Way back when I was a young man, I had a neighbor. Virginia Campbell was her name. She was on council at the time, and we had very many discussions on infrastructure, garbage, waste, and wastewater, as well as water collection. At an early age, I was clearly informed of how the town's inner workings are performed and done. As I volunteered into the 1990s and taught citizenship, coaching, and navigation with the 225 Air Cadet Squadron, I obtained my journeyman certificate of carpentry in the year 2000 while working for Jacques Nellis. I moved on and worked with Ellis Dawn in Lethbridge, where I was able to build the Lethbridge City Hall. And at that time, I met the mayor, David Carpenter. I worked on the University of Lethbridge's library, then on to Calgary, where I worked on the landmark Shaw Cable Building on 32nd and Barlow. And I then moved on to the IBM building downtown, where I gave a ride on an unfinished elevator to a great mayor, Dave Bronconnier. I moved back to Taber after a year and a half away, where I worked for Venture Holdings and helped build Western Financial, the train station, Signature Point, and decided to join the Recreation Board. After a brief time on the volunteer fire department, I ran for council and was elected. Under Mayor Ray Bryant, I was able to sit on his right-hand side my first term. My first term, I sat on the Rec Board, the Exhibition Association, and the Waste Authority. My second term I was on council, I was able to grab the ear of Premier Alison Redford, the Deputy Premier Thomas Lucas. Also into my second term, I was appointed to the Chamber of Commerce, the Municipal Planning Commission, also again the Taber Exhibition Association, and the Joint Economic Development Committee. I was president of the Regional Waste Authority. After 2 terms, I took a breather and became president of the Taber and District Chamber of Commerce, where I became active in the 3 largest events in Taber: Corn Fest, Pheasant Festival, and Midnight Madness, now called Winterfest. It was a pleasure to volunteer at these events and to see the amazing power the businesses and the volunteers of this community can muster together to provide events like no other. I've had the ear of the last 3 premiers and had great conversations with many MLAs and MPs. I have been to the Parliament buildings in Ottawa and to the Legislative Assembly in Edmonton. I was the co-chair of Cornfest this year and did all the promotional videos for Cornfest. I announced high school football games, so I have public speaking experience. After all that, I have proved to be involved and experienced in every spoke of the wheel that is Taber. From recreation to building, I have construction management experience, and in closing, I'd like to thank the people of Taber for the opportunity to run as your next mayor of Taber. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Ken.
Thank you. My name is Ken Holst, and I am very grateful and feel honored to be able to be here today and to be able to run for mayor and to live in a country with a democratic society that allows us to be able to do that and go through these steps that we have been through the early elections and, of course, on October the 18th. First, I want to start by thanking the Chamber. Appreciate them for putting this on, giving us this opportunity at this forum, but also for the countless hours and the many things they have done leading up to this in regards to their Facebook pages and other social media that they have done, and has worked tirelessly to be able to put a lot of information out. The 10 questions that were posted that we all answered, I think that was an excellent idea, especially during this particular time where, through COVID, where we haven't been able to have an open forum where with all of you here, we would love to be able to have that happen. But today we're doing it virtually. So thank you for the Chamber for all that you've done and everything that you've done to make this happen. And again, for all the great information that's been able to be put out there, especially this year with really an unprecedented number of candidates running for council and for mayor. So again, thank you to the Chamber. My experience and one of the main reasons why I feel like I wanted to run for mayor and wanted to get involved is my love and my passion for the town of Taber and for the people of Taber. I was born in Taber. I left Taber and went into the RCMP when I was 25 years old and learned a lot of skills there, saw a lot of things, and did many things that I think has prepared me for many things in life, many things that I've had. As a father, I'm a father of 4, I'm a grandfather of 13 grandchildren. And the experiences that you gain throughout your life, I think, are really an important part, and going off and being in the RCMP was great for me. Coming back to Taber was great as well, being able to become a local businessman here and to be involved in the community with so many things that were needed and were open, and I just love to be able to do that. Love to be able to serve, love to be able to be involved, love to get to know so many people and have them get to know me. It's just a good feeling to be able to walk down the street and recognize faces and to be able to talk to people. And that's what Taber is all about, I believe, is that cohesiveness that we have here. And again, I'm so very grateful for it. I've been able to serve on many boards, and I think being chairman of the police commission for almost 10 years, and most of that, under some circumstances that weren't always favorable. We went through a lot of ups and downs, but what a great experience. And I think that really helped me catch the bug, if you will, as far as being able to lead out and to be involved in that capacity. It's overseen by the Solicitor General's office, and being able to be involved with them and provide that oversight for our police force was just a tremendous opportunity to be able to negotiate wages and contracts with both the association and with the police chief was very valuable as well. And many other things that I've been involved in, and I'm so very grateful to be able to have those relationships that I gained through that, and their friendships and relationships that will last forever. I really am anxious to be able to move forward as your mayor, and a platform that I have put out there, and I hope many of you have seen it, is something that I've been calling TUG, and that's transparency, unity, and growth. And I think probably throughout tonight's questions we'll be able to let you into some of the more details if you haven't already seen that. But a real need for, in this town and through our council, to be more transparent, to be able to, and transparency isn't just about, you know, less close session meetings, and I know I've heard a lot of that from you, but just to be transparent in everything that we're doing in regards to the plans that we're making. For example, just in regards to a tax plan, we need to have a tax plan that where we can share that with you as citizens, to be able to say, this is what we're going to have to do, this is what we're wanting to do, these are the things that we think that make sense, be able to share that with you, and also be able to show well in advance what that may mean or may not mean in regards to taxes. Unity is critical. I feel that council right now is very divided, and I think first off we need to be able to make sure that we have a unified council, and then be able to unify everyone within this town. That doesn't mean everyone on the exact same page and wanting the exact same things, but being unified into a better Tabor. And then growth. We absolutely have to grow. We have to make this a stronger, viable place, and we need to let people know we are open for business. So with that and those three things, I really hope that on October 18th, if you haven't already, that you'll vote Ken Holst for mayor. Thank you.
Excellent. Andrew?
All right, thank you, and good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Prokop. I am the mayor of Tabor, Alberta. A little history about myself. I was raised in Lethbridge, Alberta, received all my education there, and graduated from the Lethbridge Community College in the criminal justice program. I moved to Tabor in 1983, where I was hired by the Tabor Police Service and spent 24 years service with the Tabor Police Service. Retired some time back. Did a variety of things beyond that in the automotive industry, irrigation and construction fields, and all in that order. Bottom line, I've done a variety of things over time and enjoyed them very much, and the challenges attached to that. And for myself, getting into the political circle, I was first elected in 2013 on town council, and spent the majority of the time, first term as a councillor, up until the last 6 months when our mayor left us unexpectedly. And at that point, I was appointed as the interim mayor. And the following term, as of 2017, I was elected as the mayor for the town of Tabor council. Besides that, I've actually spent a lot of time on different boards: Safe Haven, Emergency Shelter, TCAPS, Tabor and District Adult Learning, Ace Place, Lethbridge County Board, all in the president capacity at some point as well. And I very much enjoy playing hockey, hunting, camping, fishing, photography, and many other outdoor activities as well. As far as our community goes, Tabor is a very healthy community, has a community spirit that I foster when I can. And my community involvement began way back when I first started with the police service and is certainly ongoing today. My efforts for community enhancement are visible within the town of Tabor with projects such as the Tabor Trout Pond and Campground project that's still ongoing, the completion of the trail system, the completion of the loop at that stage, and or the completion of 56th Avenue and Highway 64 intersection. The Meadows project, Meadows housing project for attainable housing, as well as ongoing currently, as well as the wetlands project also underway in the Sugar Factory Lake area. And the William Ferguson Emergency Service Building was also completed and opened up last year, as well as the Ken McDonald 4th Ball Dam dedicated to Dr. Gerald Becky. As far as my focus, platform items, my three tops would be economic growth, recreational opportunities enhancement, priority projects and spending, all while being fiscally responsible as well. I am most certainly all about community spirits, community enhancement and community involvement, and looking after the betterment of our community always. And my belief is most certainly that our team Taber is building a better community for tomorrow. As far as some council history going on, in the last 4 years, we have averaged 45 new businesses per year, and actually 41 last year in the pandemic year. Our building and construction permits in the last 3 years, 2018 totaled $10 million, 2019 $6 million, 2020 $6 million, and to date, 2021 $15 million. And we were able to keep our 5-year tax average at 1.79%. As far as leadership skills go, I have strong leadership skills, high integrity, very goal-oriented. I am brutally honest and have very much passion for our community. I have conflict resolution training, where I've also been able to diffuse a variety of difficult situations over time. It has also helped me in this role. I have a very good disposition and temperament that I have been told matches the patience of Job. I also have many organizational skills, and I'm able to prioritize accordingly, improvise, adapt, and overcome when necessary. I have many public relations and media relations skills that fit well within the mayoral role as well. I am very committed and also have a very deep caring, understanding, and desire for an even better community. Well, Taber really is a great place to live, work, play, raise families, and grow. Overall, Taber is a great place to live, as I said, and I believe and intend to strive for Taber better. I also believe the need to be approachable and have our local citizens be very comfortable in speaking with myself and our other council members as well. Public input is important to local municipal government and in a variety of areas, and I also have a really good rapport with the public and town council alike, and only intend to improve on that better with transparent relationship for betterment of our community as a whole. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. We will start for the first question. Ken for the second question, Andrew for the third question, and so on. First question is, how important is it to you, if elected, to keep council members responsible for their actions through the code of conduct that has been established? Rick.
It's funny you should say that, because when I was on council, I parked my vehicle on Christmas Eve in front of a photo radar, and Ray had to discipline me, and so I know, coming from the other side, how it's done and what not to do as a councillor. So I would definitely follow the code of conduct that Ray had set out, and yeah, discipline is definitely in order, right?
Ken.
Thank you. Yeah, it's critical. Definitely, it's required. The Municipal Government Act states specifically that every town council, every city council must have a code of conduct. The town of Taber does have that code of conduct that they have drawn up, and it's absolutely critical and necessary that as a mayor and in that leadership role, that code of conduct is followed. Councilors, what we can see from a leadership position is hypocrisy, where if because of maybe one person having a different status than someone else, that the rules change for them, and that just cannot happen. Rules are made, bylaws are made to govern all, and all people should be subject to that. And so when a code of conduct issue arises, that code of conduct must be put forth to that issue that is at place, to the law. I don't believe there's any opportunity to be able to stray from that. That is the purpose of the code of conduct. We need to be held at a higher level and a higher regard in being entrusted as elected officials. And there's nothing more important than to be able to show that we're honest, being able to be accountable, not just to the rest of the council or the administration, but to every citizen within the town of Taber. And I know how important that is, and definitely commit to being able to follow that. Whatever we need to do to follow that code of conduct would be a must. Thank you.
Andrew?
All right, thank you. Yes, I would agree, code of conduct is important. And we do have, Town of Taber does have a code of conduct format that basically mirrors the Municipal Government Act. And, yeah, like any council, there has been different code of conduct scenarios. However, they have been dealt with to the satisfaction of council and not necessarily having to come out in any public forum. And that's an option. And that's how myself and or all of council, or the majority of council anyway, has chosen to deal with anything that happens to be on the table. And of course, because it's all been closed session material, I can't discuss any details. But that is an option, and it most certainly is set out in the code of conduct, in our code of conduct, and or the Municipal Government Act as well.
The next question. If elected, how would you establish a healthy environment within the town council and town staff? One that can be productive to the direction that the town needs to take. Ken?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, I spoke a little bit off the start in regards to unity, and so I think the council absolutely has to be unified to be able to achieve that, to be able to move forward in one direction. As I stated, there's not a requirement for everyone, and I don't think you even want everyone on a council or any type of group that you have in a leadership position to necessarily have all the same ideas. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's critical for us to be able to have different ideas, different thoughts, be able to come together and be unified then in whatever decision is made to go forth and make that happen and to do what's best for those that we serve and those that we do. There's the old adage that it's not what's right, it's not who's right, it's what's right, that's so important. And I think, again, that's what really needs to happen. I feel currently the council is very divided. There seems to be two different teams, two different camps, and it's really prevented a lot from occurring, a lot from happening. And we've got to be able to come together, whether it's through team building, whether it's through specific respect for each other, whether it's being able to have that same goal in mind. That is critical. And as you see that stability and that unity at a council level, that then turns into what I believe was the second part of that question, which is in regards to town employees and the town administration staff. They need to see that stability. They need to see that leadership from the top down, and to be able to see that people can be enabled, people can be trusted, people can be empowered to be able to do the right things, to be able to do their jobs, to, again, want to try their best to do what's the best for the town, as opposed to maybe being fearful or worried about exactly what any repercussions might be. And I think that's where that will happen. Once that respect, once that enabling happens, then people can relax, people can become the person that they were hired to be, and to be able to go forth and to do their jobs and to be able to create great things. Mayor and council don't know everything and shouldn't proclaim to know everything. That's why we need these great employees that are proficient in planning or strategies, research, et cetera, and those employees are so critical. So again, the answer to that question is we've got to be unified from the top down, be able to enable each other, be able to be unified in the decisions that are made, and be able to go forth in that way. Thank you.
Andrew?
Yes, thank you. Yes, overall, I would agree that council needs to get along as best you can. Ideally, if there was never any issues within, that would be great. However, we're all human on any given council, and I think there's just times that things come up, you're just gonna have to agree to disagree. And we have had some great discussions, great deliberations, and for the most part, no difficulty that way, but there has been the odd occasion that it has been a little testy, let's say, in different cases there, but it's, personalities, that's personality sometimes, and I certainly try to mediate as best I can, and I can't control every individual always. I certainly make note of any particular behavior that's not appropriate, whether it's in an open session or a closed session format. But again, you cannot control personalities or sometimes emotions are running high for whatever reason, other than pointing that out and try to be very tactful and understanding that there are certain reasons why somebody's thinking the way they are or behaving the way they are, but that needs to be pointed out to them. So overall, as I said, council does need to get along, and our council does get along overall as a whole, and have done very well. Thank you.
Rick?
Well, I believe you're speaking on the last few months, how many people have gone through I guess the grinder for the town of Taber, the management, the staff, the turnover. The council's shorthanded. It's hard to run a council when they're shorthanded. When you have 6 councilors and 1 mayor, the vote is always decided by either the mayor or 1 councilor. When there's solely 6 people sitting at that table, it's very hard to make decisions. I've been there. I've seen it. You have to pick up the slack for that 1 councilor missing. That's why councils are made of 6 people and 1 mayor. So we can always make that decision. Taber used to be an employer of choice. But I think it's lacking some leadership. And hopefully the new council that comes in and the new mayor, if there is a new mayor, brings the leadership skills that are needed to make Taber the employer of choice globally, not just provincially or federally, but globally. Thank you.
The next question is a little bit longer. The town of Taber just hired a new CAO. The CAO's job is to make sure the town is complying to all forms of law under the MGA. If the CAO discovers there's a discrepancy and informs council that they need to make some changes, are you going to argue and fight against it because the new changes will affect you or your business personally? Or are you going to back up your CAO? And I will give an example. Roads A, B, C need to be plowed. Road A is a non-emergency route. Road B is a partial emergency route. Road C is a full emergency route. The town has always plowed Route A first. When this was discovered, the CAO informs the council that Road C needs to be done first. You, as a councillor, either live or have a business on Road A. Are you going to fight against this, or are you going to back up the CAO? Andrew?
Well, that's a very loaded question. Questions, I have to say. But I'll give it my best shot. And I'm not sure if you're taking that direct from any of our actual policies, but I believe there is an ABC route format, and that is actually designed for A being top priority first, B secondary, and C the third top choice. So I think what you're asking, number one, are we supporting the CAO, myself and our council? But absolutely, well, I shouldn't say absolutely, because that's part of that question. Question that. But the bottom line is, for the most part, the CAO is in charge of operational processes, and council does not have much to do with that ever, unless there's something major problematic involved, some of which you just missed in your several part question. So, all things considered, in that case, to me, if the CEO is doing something against what's actual policy and he's suggesting something be done first, it's not on an actual policy and procedure list, and I think, and council involved in that scenario, absolutely, you have to speak up and say, we have a policy and procedure format for a reason. And in that case, that would not be accurate for a CEO to overstep, if what I'm understanding your questions there, that would not be an appropriate situation to deal with something that's going against the grain as far as what's actually in policy and procedure that's written on paper.
Rick?
Well, that's a very good question, and it's part of my platform. Roads. So it's time to fix the roads in our community and develop a plan for future arteries. Right now, there's no plan for future bus routes or any public transit. So I know there's A, B, and C routes, and emergency routes are always plowed first, despite what the council or the CAO thinks. Emergency routes should always be plowed first. And I can give you a bunch of scenarios, but the fact of the matter is we need ambulances to get to the hospital. We need fire and police to be able to get to the scenes, and the CAO and the policies in place for what is exactly done. And until we establish a future artery plan, we got to follow what's in place.
Ken?
Again, I think this comes back to a little bit in regards to what I said earlier in regards to our employees. And council itself has really one direct employee, and that is the CEO. And I think we absolutely need to enable and trust all of the employees, but most vividly the CAO, and be able to put that trust and again, that accountability on their shoulders. And I think they can perform properly when you do that in any leadership role. That's critical to be able to enable your employees. And so I think that would be the first step, to be able to trust. However, there is a caveat to that, and I definitely agree with that policy or safety has to be number one. Absolutely, safety has to be number one. And if any time a council member or mayor or even other employees try and change that, which I think that question is hinting a little bit for their personal gain because of a business or a location or their personal home or what have you, I think would be a serious issue in itself. That, again, we can't be in these trusted roles, elected and trusted by the citizens of Taber, and then take advantage of that. We need to definitely trust our employees, but to the point of where we are looking after and doing safety and whatever policy is in place, which would ensure that safety. I'm hoping those policies are made in that vein, and that needs to be the way that would flow, with no regard for any personal gain.
The next question, and I believe a lot of this has been answered in your introductions, but here it goes. What qualifies you to be mayor? Please reference education, experience, business acumen, interpersonal skills, or any other aspect you believe has prepared you to be mayor. Rick?
Wow, that's a great question. I was door knocking and talking to people in the community, and one guy came up and said, on paper, you're the best candidate. On paper, you're the best candidate. You've done everything in the community for the last 12 years, from being the president of the Chamber of Commerce, to be the president of the Waste Authority, to be on the MPC, where we had 20 million in 2017 worth of building projects come through, to coaching baseball, hockey, being involved with volleyball, hockey, baseball, softball, being in the community, every different aspect, right? When I was the president of the chamber, we had 230 members. We helped Vauxhall become their own chamber. I've done so many things in the past that it's actually easier to say how many things I haven't done in this community. And I've come up with a plan. I've got a plan. I've got a 7-point plan. In the next 4 years, my plan is to complete that 7 points, and then to move on. I'll only do 2 terms. My plan is only to do 2 terms, and then after that, I won't run again. So that's what qualifies me as a person for mayor.
Ken?
Thank you. Yes, as I said in my opening comments, I believe that life skills are critical when going into any role, especially a leadership role. We know that past behaviors will dictate future behaviors, and that's important to know as well. My experience started out from a young age. I wanted to be a policeman, and I wanted to be involved in that capacity. So after high school, I did take a year of criminology at Mount Royal College, and then went into the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, went through training, and was stationed as a police officer in Saskatchewan for the time of my service. There I came out and worked in middle management at TELUS, managing and leading 70 people in a call center. And then from there, we returned back to Taber, where I was born, and was able to become a business owner and a businessman here in Taber, and been working in that capacity now for the last 17 years. And again, the town of Taber is amazing, and it's so wonderful to be involved in. Immediately upon returning, I was involved through different scouting programs, working with youth and that sort of thing. But throughout this time, as I mentioned before, I've been chairman of the police commission, and that was for almost 10 years. The Police Act dictates that that's the length that one person can be in that role. So I had to leave that. I loved being able to be involved in that and being that oversight. I'm currently president of TCAPS. I'm also currently on Citizens on Patrol, as well as many other volunteer groups that I've been involved in and have been involved in. Outside of the town of Taber, I've also received a lot of experience in regards to provincial boards. I sat on the Insurance Brokers Association of Alberta as a director for a number of years, as well as other political parties, and been involved with them and sat as directors and board members in regards to that. Again, I really feel that the platform of transparency, unity, and growth encompasses everything. Anything that we need to have happen, anything that needs to be improved on, anything that needs to be changed here will fall under those three categories. And as we achieve them together as one, I believe that we'll be able to move forward on many things. Thank you.
Andrew.
Yes, thank you. Yes, for myself, it's actually a kind of a natural progression in this role. And for me, even choosing law enforcement as a career path to start with, and becoming a police officer even early on, as I'm sure Ken can understand, being a similar background, that as a police officer, as a junior police officer, you're in a leadership role right out of the gate, whether you want it or not. That's part of the job requirement and part of the required criteria. And even way back then, as a junior constable, doing the bike rodeos, the talks, different talks at schools, and dealing with the scout tours of the police service, the cells, ride-alongs with interested individuals, all the rest of it, in a leadership role and or mentorship role as well. And over the years, as a police officer, at one time, I remember this quite clearly it's going back to the mid-90s or somewhere in that range. But I was tallying up all the different boards and committees I was on, and I was on 14 different boards and committees and working full-time with the police service. So hence my days off weren't my days off for myself. I was dealing with a lot of different things there and loving it. You know, I was willing to do it. And I guess if I have any downfall, it's the inability to say no to a great cause and somebody asking to help in a certain role, and whether it's a board or committee or helping sell tickets or fundraise or whatever the case may be. But I've always enjoyed that community side tremendously, and still continue to do that. Even after retiring from the police service, I was always involved in some kind of board or organization, and the whole 38 years I've been here in Taber, I've been involved in something, and generally several things ongoing at any given different time. There, same thing, helping to fundraise or helping to promote. And in the mayoral role, I've done a lot more of that with different asks. And same thing, if somebody's asking me to be part of something myself, or council members to attend, it's important to be there. And I definitely try my level best to be there any given time, whether I'm speaking on the behalf of the Taber Town Council or Town of Taber, or just there to participate or enjoy an evening and promote something that's beneficial for our community as well. Again, that is what I'm all about the community and the promotion in that regard, and anything for the betterment of our community as a whole.
The next question. How do you see Taber developing and attracting the necessary businesses and industry to fill the Meadows housing complex, and also the existing and future available homes for sale and rent? Do you see this as an issue yet to be examined and dealt with? Ken?
Thank you for that question. That's a great question. Growth, again, I've talked a little bit about growth, and I want to continue to be able to talk a lot more about that, so thank you for this question. We absolutely have to be able to grow. There is a lot of things that are occurring over the very near future in regards to Tabor and the town, and the MD of Tabor, the area of Tabor. One being the twinning of the highway, two being the new agricultural hub that's coming in with many irrigation acres being added that the provincial government is doing, as area that is different from anywhere in what it is that we have. And because of these things that are happening, we are going to see a large growth in this area. We need to be ready. We need to put a plan in place immediately. I think whoever is in place, the 7 members of council and the members of the MD council, that as soon as they're able to be allowed to meet, that they need to get into a room and to start planning. We need a plan to of the things that are there. That plan. It would be a shame if we don't take advantage of that. So we need to be able to show that we are open for business, that we need to attract the necessary businesses into this area, whether it be small businesses in beautifying the downtown and making the downtown unique and wanting to be able to be a special place, to larger businesses that will employ these people that will come here and that will need affordable housing, that whether it be in the Meadows, whether it be in areas that are vacant now, we need to be able to bring that together, and we need to be ready for that. And we have to use our stakeholders in being able to do that. The MD of Tabor being one, many of the other government services that are here, many of the citizens of Tabor that are passionate about this and are wanting to be involved. We need to be able to do that. And we need to have, again, we need to have a plan. We need to put a plan into place. We need to be able to hire, again, people that are experts, if we don't already have them, for that planning, for that growth, and to be able to put those right things in place. And again, it would be a shame, an absolute shame, if we miss out on this opportunity. So we need to go forward in that way, work with our stakeholders, put a plan into place, make it happen. And again, I hate to bring out cliches, but build it and they will come. We'll be able to fill those houses. Thank you.
Andrew.
Yes, thank you. It's unfortunately there's some misconception about their understanding whether there's a plan or not. There's most certainly is a plan. There has been a plan since 2017. We did a study on that particular attainable housing scenario, and that's been a council initiative since then, and council passion since 2017 when that study came back, which we had a good idea how it was going to come out with the suggestion, and there was certainly a gap in attainable housing and affordable housing in the town of Tabor, and we've addressed that and continue to address that. In 2018, we purchased 60 acres just south of the cemetery, which is the location where the Meadows project is ongoing. Currently in the infrastructure stage, 90 lots are now for sale there. Last I saw, I believe there was just the one lot sold fairly recently in the last month or so. But there is 90 for sale, ready to go. Not ready to move in, obviously, but by next spring, I believe you will see manufactured homes on those sites and growing on a regular basis. A total of 302 sites available on a 60 acre plot. And again, that was designed for that purpose and for that plan. Now more recently, there's been information come out through the UCP government about getting ready even further, as Ken indicated is accurate, with the water availability and or irrigation ability rather, and some 200,000 acres is earmarked for that expansion and or the growth in this area in the farming industry. So that's absolutely part of that as of late as well. But again, this is going back to 2017 when we as council recognized that as a gap and acted on that accordingly. So there has been a plan in place since 2017, and we're at the stage now in 2021 where the Meadows project is now underway and lots are now for sale and have been sold. And I believe it's only a matter of time. This is going to mushroom, and that attainable housing is set out for that purpose. And could we do other areas? Possibly, yeah, that's a possibility. And even through the government and some of the initiatives they have going on, we may be able to deal with Taber district housing through a project that's potentially underway in that regard. And in the beginning phases, it's looking very positive. So there's most certainly plans in place, and we're acting on those accordingly.
Rick?
Well, thanks for that question. Actually, as president of the Chamber of Commerce, I was also the chair of the Joint Economic Development Committee. And so in 2017, we did come up with a strategic plan on how we are going to get a plan together for all the 3,420 people that are going to be moving to our area for the 4.2 million acres of irrigated land through Canada's premier food corridor. It's going to bring in $8 billion in the GDP, and it'll have to have a skilled workforce. So when I was chair of the Joint Economic Development Committee, we definitely found out that there was a problem. We needed a solution. We came up with a solution. The town worked with us. The MD worked with us, and being on that board, we learned a lot. Attainable housing isn't $300,000 houses, it's $200,000 houses. So let's remember that. I'm also a landlord, so I see rents going up all the time, all over town, and it's frustrating to me. I think $800 for a 2-bedroom house is a definitely a good cost, and that's what people should be paying. So these are the numbers that I have from being the president of the Chamber on the Joint Economic Development Committee chair. Thank you.
The next question is short and sweet. It's to all three of you at the same time. Question to all, hands up. Who bought their candidate material locally? Next question.
Candy Jensen.
What is your position on how Taber has handled the COVID-19 restrictions or lack thereof? Also, your opinion on vaccine mandates as well. Are you double vaccinated? Andrew.
Sorry, could you ask that question again, please?
What is your position on how Taber has handled the COVID-19 restrictions or lack thereof? And also your opinion on vaccine mandates as well. Are you double vaccinated?
All right, thank you. Well, the way it's been handled, we as a town council have pretty much followed all the AHS recommendations, done different video presentation to encourage that, and taking word gospel and or the UCP direction on how to deal with this. And so we've never spoke out against that at all. How it's been handled in the area, that's another story, I guess. I've been interviewed on that a number of times, and I certainly don't have all the answers for that. And I know we're in the 50 or 52% rate, I think now, the last figure I saw on that, as far as being vaccinated, which is low compared to Lethbridge area. And that's a problem. And now as far as mandating the actual vaccination forms, I know a number of locations are doing it. I know the city of Lethbridge for sure are doing that. We haven't got to that stage yet with the town of Taber. It could be coming, but certainly others are doing it in the area, and it may be very applicable and maybe reasonable to consider that. Personally, I have no trouble with the vaccination requirement at all, and yes, I am double vaccinated, and I agree with that. Again, it's basically following the AHS rules and or Dr. Hinshaw with her chief medical officer expertise. And we're still in a difficult time in the 4th phase in an area that we didn't know we were going to get to phase 2, and here we're in phase 4. So I think it's a difficult position for the UCP or any government to be in to deal with that. But again, that was our mandate to follow their guidelines, the UCP guidelines and or the chief medical officer's guidelines, and carry on accordingly.
Well, I know everybody's seen me at the hospital. I did a lot of work there. I did a lot of renovations to it, but I'm not a doctor, as much as I want to be. We've always followed the local health authority. My mother was an RN. She always told me to follow the local health authority. When I traveled to Africa, I had all my shots. I got hepatitis A, B, and C, and made sure that all my vaccinations were up to date prior to travel. And I think it's a pretty personal question to ask us if we're double vaccinated. I am double vaccinated, but that's a pretty personal question, and that's not really fair for people to ask us that. I just would like to say that, follow the local health authority, always listen to your doctor. Don't try to listen to somebody who's not your doctor. These guys go to school for 7 years. I don't. I didn't go to school for 7 years. So listen to your local doctor.
Ken?
To answer the question specifically, and I agree, Alberta Health Services is, and the provincial government is who has been and should be over a lot of the mandates and a lot of the, whether it be restrictions or specific phasing that has occurred or hasn't occurred. And that's where it needs to stay. One of the things I think I was a little disappointed about was the town of Tabor putting in a mass bylaw when there was already a provincial bylaw. And I think that was a little bit of a duplication and created a bit of a stir in the area when we were already under one. And so I think it's important that we sort of remain to understand that those mandates and those specific instructions come from those that are doing that research, that have those statistics specifically. Now, in regards to being mandated to be vaccinated, which I think is what the question is asking, I am double vaccinated, and that was my personal choice to be double vaccinated. I did my own research. I have a son that's a doctor. I took some advice from him, and I chose to be vaccinated. However, with that said, I do not believe that we have the ability as a province, or specifically for sure, not as a town, to say people absolutely have to be vaccinated, that that's an absolute requirement. Restrictions on those that aren't vaccinated, that is the choice of those that may be putting those restrictions in place. But I think there's two different things there that we need to not have the ability to absolute force people to be vaccinated. And again, if people want to restrict, or if the province wants to restrict certain things that we're able to do or go, then that's different. But we need to make sure that that personal choice is in place. And I was able to make that personal choice for myself, and I'm grateful that I live in a country that I was able to do that.
Next question. Would you reinstate the mask bylaw? Yes or no? Rick?
Well, as a municipality, you don't have to do that. So absolutely not. I don't think that's fair. Why would you do that as a municipality? The province has already come out with a mask bylaw, and if they want you to do it, you have to follow the province. It's a provincial law. So.
Ken?
I think it's a little bit circumstantial. I just answered that question in regards to that, with the provincial mask bylaw in place, it is redundant to be able to put our own mask bylaw into place. However, I don't think we should restrict that to absolutely never. Who knows what circumstances the future could bring. Let's say that the province lifts that mask bylaw and we have some sort of research or some sort of facts, absolute proven facts, that require something just within a small hub. Again, we don't know where this COVID is going to go to in the future, but in that case, maybe that's where you would look at that and possibly put that in. But currently, right now, as I said before, that is really not our place. We need to leave that to those who are in charge right now, who have the absolute facts, who have the absolute statistics, and again, we need to follow those if we're put into place and not vie from that in any way.
Andrew?
Yeah, so just to clarify, originally our mask bylaw was put in place 2 weeks before the provincial mask bylaw was initiated. That's a little bit of an inaccurate statement previously, but and when the provincial mask mandate came in, the provincial mandate supersedes any municipal bylaw no matter what. So right now, the way it is, we don't have a current, we rescinded our local bylaw some time back, and just before they opened up, just prior to July the 1st. So to initiate a town municipal bylaw, mask bylaw now would be pointless. The provincial bylaw is in place regarding that requirement. And again, any provincial bylaw absolutely supersedes any municipal bylaw whatsoever.
Would you create a bylaw that would force businesses to ask for vaccine status? Yes or no? Ken?
No, absolutely not. That's not our place to do that. Business owners have those businesses, and as long as they are following provincial guidelines, then they have that ability. Currently, they have a choice to do that or not, and if they do not, then they follow the full lockdown procedures, and so that choice is there for them, and it should remain with them.
Andrew?
I would agree with that 100%. I don't think you need to put that on any business's shoulders to dictate what they do or don't do. They're able to run their business accordingly. If they choose, any business choose to have a mask bylaw on their own, fine, I'm going to comply. If I'm expected to be welcome in there, then I have no problem with that. And if it's the opposite, then I'm not worried about wearing one in there either, if that's their ask. However, being the provincial mandates in place, we have to follow all that now, but as far as forcing the business, no, I don't agree with that either at all.
Rick?
I've always believed Canada's a free country. We shouldn't dictate what businesses do. That's why they're in business, to try to make money, and it's very simple. If the business decides not to do it, that's up to them. But like Andy said, it's a provincial mandate, so they need to follow the provincial rules. It's not our job as a mayor or council to dictate what a business does. Thank you.
How do you see Tabor developing and attracting the necessary business and industry to fill the Meadows? Oh, I will say this has been a duplicate question.
Deja vu.
We've already done that one. All right, we'll start off with Andrew then. It's no secret that COVID has been hard on many over the past year and a half. As the owner of a private business, I know that I've had to make tough decisions, cutbacks throughout the pandemic. As mayoral candidates, I would like to know how each of you plan on handling potential deficits and if you are considering cutbacks to public service or policing. And we'll start with Andrew.
Oh, that's a tough question. You know, there's no doubt it has been a difficult year and a half, 18, 20 months here. And everybody's beyond tired of this, albeit still need to be optimistic and follow the recommendations. I believe that's, again, how we've handled this as a council. And regarding any deficits, again, that's different. We've helped different businesses out that are renting through the town of Taber. We've done some forgiveness that way and different methods where we could for certain contracts where they had to be closed from the provincial mandate in that regard. As far as any other individual business, we haven't gone there at this stage. I don't know if that's a practical ask and or consideration. I guess you can consider anything, but that's a difficult side of that question. And again, it's, supporting our local business in any way that we can is important. Local or area business is important, but some of those asks are difficult to say, and I can't speak on behalf of all of council in that regard, other than if it's on the table, we would certainly consider it and discuss it and see what the best practical solution may or may not be.
Rick?
Well, I thank you for that question. Actually, the town of Taber and the MD Taber work very well with Community Futures. They do a municipal beautification plan for most of downtown, and I think that's the way to go out of COVID. It's part of my platform, is the business recovery plan. I watched the town of Chestermere drop their utility rates 8% over 1 year. I think if the town could cut taxes 4% over 4 years, not only would it help the businesses, but it would help the people of our community, because the inflation rate in our province and our country has gone through the roof recently. You can go to any hardware store or any grocery store and see how much the price of a loaf of bread has gone up. They say that 3% was targeted for inflation rate in 2021, but I see it now at closer to 23%. So we need to help our citizens out and help our businesses out with a 4% tax cut and our business recovery plan with Community Futures, the federal government, the provincial government, our municipal district, and the town of Taber. Thank you.
Ken?
Can I just ask, there was a second part of the question that talked about cutbacks from policing, and there was one other thing that there was a cutback from. Very last line in the question.
As mayoral candidates, I would like to know how each of you plan on handling potential deficits and if you are considering cutbacks to public service or policing.
Public service, that's what it was, thank you. Good question. Yeah, I think recovery is critical. COVID, as we all know, has not been kind to anyone, and definitely has not been kind to businesses as a whole, and especially our local businesses. And we definitely need a plan, a recovery plan that goes into place. I'll admit I don't know exactly what that plan would look like, but I think I would definitely be in favor of trying to get that plan together with the rest of council, whether it's through tax breaks or utility breaks or whatever the case may be. I think what's important there is that we use a consistent plan, and again, we can't fall into a trap where certain businesses can receive that when others in the same position do not. So there needs to be a black and white plan that everybody will know about, that will be transparent about, and that all business owners will need to know about. Because, I've talked a lot about growth, and part of growth is retention. So it's not going to help us any if we're trying to grow, and yet as we add one, we take two away. So we can't grow if we don't maintain and keep the businesses and the business core that we have now. And so it's critical for us to be able to bring that forward. Whether we would, and I think the question alludes to the fact whether we would cut from public service or the police to be able to fund that. I think that probably is a bit of a dangerous slope to go down. But again, it would all be driven by what the needs are. And as we look forward and as we counsel together as a council, as we really be able to understand and use those employees that we have, use those department heads that we have that know and understand what it is that they're needing, what it is that they may have surplus from, then we're able to continue with that 3-year rolling budget to be able to say, yes, this is where we need to invest that money, or this is where we can find a surplus and be able to cut back. To just blindly be able to say, listen, that needs to come from public service or from the police, I think would be dangerous. As we grow, we're going to need public service, we're going to need policing, and that's part of, I think, of our growth strategy, is to know that Tabor is a safe place to be able to come and live, and our statistics around our police definitely show that. So we definitely need a plan. We need to take care of our businesses. We need to make sure recovery happens, and we can't just talk about it. We have to actually do it, and do it in the correct way.
In the past, confidentiality has been an issue within the council regarding personal issues and other within a closed session. Will you take confidentiality seriously as a councillor and mayor? And what would happen to those who would breach it? Sorry, Rick.
Oh. Sorry, confidentiality.
Has been an issue within council regarding personal issues and other closed session items to the public.
Yeah, I'm unaware of any of these, and I'm not mayor yet. When I was on council, there was no confidentiality breaches, so I don't know. I'm not informed on the recent council because I'm not on that council. But yeah, if confidentiality is breached, definitely there's repercussions, and that's the code of conduct. It goes right back to the code of conduct. The mayor's got to discipline the councillor at that point. It's not a gray area. It's a black and white area. It's either confidential or it's not confidential. So you need to keep the confidentiality. And if there is a breach, it needs to come to the mayor and the council, and they need to deal with it through the code of conduct.
Ken?
Yeah, I would agree. Trust is critical. Trust, I've spoken about that before. As an elected official, you need to make sure that you can trust. As you put that check mark or that X in that ballot box through this voting process, you have to know that you're going to be able to trust those people to be able to do what it is. And closed session, or what's happening behind closed doors, albeit that maybe we're doing that too much, but when it has to be, whether it's labor, whether it's land, whether it's legal, which has to be behind closed doors, that has to stay confidential. There's a reason it's behind those. And any breach from that can be dangerous on the plan that we're wanting to do. As that information gets out potentially into the wrong hands, or into particular people that are maybe wanting to find an advantage from a business perspective or whatever the case may be, that is a huge breach. That is a huge problem. Trust and confidentiality and honesty have to be number one with any council, with any mayor, with any elected official. And I agree with what Rick said. That's what the code of conduct is for, and something that has to be dealt with through that when and if it occurs. And it's a serious thing. It needs to be dealt very seriously. And again, the danger of that occurring and getting out, and you know, whether it's to our employees, because we've been talking about them, whether it creates a fall through in a deal, whether it sets a favoritism to someone or what have you, all dangerous things, all things that cannot happen if you want to have a council, a staff, an administration, employees, and a town that needs to move forward in the right direction. We have to trust each other. We have to be able to do this together. And yeah, that's the only way that it can be dealt with, is that way. Thanks.
Andrew?
All right, thank you. Yes, absolutely. Confidentiality is key and extremely important to remain just that, as confidential. There's a very serious information that's discussed when that confidential information is on the table for whatever reason, and that absolutely needs to be behind closed doors for obvious reasons. And should that be leaked in whatever capacity, absolutely that needs to be dealt with appropriately and in the code of conduct method as the council sees fit. But that is a critical component that should never be a breach. And related to the closed session scenario we're talking about here, I also had occasion to do a bit of research on closed session items for the last 12 months. And 93% of those items were land, legal and labor related. So the very high majority, 93% plus, as land, legal, or labor, as Ken had indicated, is accurate. So 7% of those other items could potentially be considered in an open session format, but they were also covered under other FOIP legislation requirements as well. But that confidentiality is just absolutely critical, as has been said by my other two colleagues here today, that it just absolutely has to be that there's so much attached to that. If that type of information were to be leaked, that could be completely detrimental to the whole organization and affect us as an entire community for many years going forward. So extremely critical, as Ken indicated also. Trust is key, and you have to have that trust and have to have that on a regular basis. And as Rick also indicated, you have to know the difference and separate that accordingly. If you don't belong on the council, bottom line.
The last three questions are directed to each of you individually. For Ken, how will you as mayor take steps to hold yourself and the rest of council accountable for their conduct and mistakes?
I think we covered a lot of that, but personally myself, you know, I'm glad that question actually added mistakes to it, because I'm not professing to be elected and be able to be perfect. I don't think any of us can. And absolutely, we're all human, and I think mistakes, unfortunately, at times are made. I think we need to properly educate ourselves. We need to properly surround ourselves with the proper policies, with the proper procedures, with the proper bylaws to ensure that we minimize those mistakes. But I absolutely commit that if a mistake is made, I would never try and cover that up. I think we need to be able to own up to our mistakes and be able to learn from them and improve from them. I think, again, going back to the whole piece of where we're counseling together as a council, and that's why we're called a council, is that we can counsel together and have those different opinions and be able to move forward with that way. And if I have a strong idea or a strong thought, or even a mistake that I may have made, and another member within that council comes up with a better idea or corrects me, I absolutely know that I would be able to accept that, to be able to be mature enough to admit, to say, you know what, that's a much better idea. I didn't consider this, or I didn't consider that, and not be prideful and to say, listen, no, my idea has to rule supreme. Especially in the case of a mistake, and if they're pointed out. Again, mistakes are made, we need to limit them, we need to correct them, we need to admit to them, and we need to move forward with them. I believe the first part of it was in regards to conduct. I absolutely commit again to do my absolute best to uphold everything that's put in our place as far as conduct, and do my very best to act and behave and represent the town of Taber properly and with the proper conduct. Again, as a human being, as a father, as a husband, as a business owner, as a citizen of the town of Taber, it is important for me to be that I act and portray and do everything that I can honestly and openly, and be able to have my conduct in the outward, and be able to be seen and to represent Taber properly, and it's critical for that conduct to be properly. But if it ever were to fall slightly offline, I would welcome that feedback to be able to help me always be that person that I want to be. Thanks.
For Andrew as mayor, and you'll forgive me, there's part of this question that I do not quite understand. You are responsible for keeping the rest of council in compliance with the code of conduct and treating people with respect. During your tenure, the CAD, I believe it is, was let go publicly, and a number of closed session items called Council Code of Conduct have been brought forward in closed session. Based on this dysfunction, please let us know why citizens should believe you that you will hold the next council to a higher degree of respectful conduct.
If I could just start CAD, I think I believe they're suggested CAO, if they're related to a release. However, that's what I would interpret out of that. And yes, our CAO was released some time back, and was done so publicly. And there was a press release done very soon after with information in relation to that direction. However, when it's personnel involved, that also falls under the labor side, which means it's closed session material and cannot actually be released for any reasons involved. And so basically following the letter of the law under the FOIP legislation on how we can or cannot handle a situation as such. So with that in mind, it's just like anything else. Following the letter to the law, code of conduct related is also, there have been a number of items closed session related that are the base information on a closed session item. But again, those are all options that any council has the option to deal with and have a discussion in whatever regard that is, also which cannot be disclosed, as I said earlier. So with that, that is an option by the mayor and or council on how to deal with something, and in some cases from the educational perspective, that's also felt to be closed session related necessary. And again, it's an option of council to the satisfaction of the end result, whatever that end result may be, with whatever code of conduct scenario that may be on the table in the closed session format. So absolutely, following the code of conduct is important, and it's also, as I said before, it mirrors the Municipal Government Act Code of Conduct almost to the letter, and that is key, and it must be followed accordingly. And we have been doing that, and we'll continue to do that in the future if there's an absolute need to do so.
Rick, your slogan is the local choice for mayor. Please explain this, given that all the candidates must be residents of the community they're running in, including mayoral candidates.
It's just a slogan. It's a good slogan, I think. I was born just over here at the Taber Hospital, and I grew up on the south side, across from Westlake School. Bought a house on the north side of Taber. Grew up helping out in the community everywhere I can. I was a deputy mayor 3 times. It's just a slogan. I just thought it would be a good, catchy slogan, your local choice for mayor.
I'd like to thank the public for all of these questions. They're very thought-provoking. We'll wind up the evening with concluding remarks from each of the candidates. Rick?
You want me to go first again? Okay.
I do.
All right. Okay, so tonight we talked about some pretty amazing things. We talked about confidentiality a lot. We talked about masks. We talked about COVID recovery, plans for the future of Tabor, and roads. We talked a little bit about roads. Now the way to get started is to quit talking and start doing. Walt Disney once said this. My hands, I've got scars and calluses because I've built a lot of great buildings in this community, working on Western Financial, the train station, community, Signature Point, St. Pat's Elementary School, and to the clinic, move into the hospital, to a ball diamond for kids to play on. My plan is simple: address my 7-point platform and build a great team Tabor. Number 1, roads. Time to fix the roads and develop a plan for the future and the arteries of our town. Number 2, recreation. Create new recreational opportunities to get kids back outside and off the Game Boys and off the computers down in the basement. Current economic development deficiency. There's no room for home-based businesses to grow and expand into a small commercial space. Number 4, approachability for seniors and members of the community. Currently, there's 5 doors to go through and enter to see the mayor. I'll break down those barriers and move the mayor's office so you only have to go through the front doors to see the mayor. Business recovery program, I've outlined this before. The 4% tax cut over 4 years would help struggling businesses after COVID. Like I said, I've seen Chestermere drop taxes 8% over 1 year. Number 6, Tabor on a global level. Tabor is famous for its great 5, the big 5: onions, potatoes, corn, peas, and carrots. We've grown the food to feed the world in our premier food corridor. And number 7, youth work. A lot of programs are struggling, and it's time for the town to do their part and help so youth can continue in their sport or their activity or their program. It's time the town steps in and helps out financially a little bit. Now remember, on October 18th, vote your only local choice for Mayor, Rick Papadenis. Thank you.
Ken?
Thank you. Well, the time is now. We've been asked several times in different situations as far as how would we enable the citizens of Tabor to be more involved in decision making. Well, there isn't a more critical time right now than to be involved in that decision making in regards to electing a mayor and council. I honestly believe there isn't a time that in history that it's been more critical for us to make a right decision, to be properly informed, to understand what it is that we need and want going forward, and be able to make that choice now. We can see what's going on in our country, we can see what's going on in our province, we can see what's happening in the world all around us. Now is the time for Tabor to be able to flourish and to be able to stand out from these problems, to be able to move forward, to be transparent with all of you and exactly what it is that we need to do, the decisions that we need to make, and why we're making those decisions. We need to be able to be unified, again, not just as a council, not just as an employer, but as citizens in the town of Tabor. We can make anything happen if we do it arm in arm, understanding each other, having compassion for each other, for all people, regardless of anything. We need to be able to show that love and respect for each other. We need to be able to respect other people's wishes and desires and the choices that they make. And as we do that, and as we link together to be able to make this a place for all of us to live, what wonderful things can happen. And again, we have to grow. If we want to be able to grow, we need to make this happen together. And I know that we can. That decision is now. It's on your hands as we go forward to this election to make that right choice, to be able to move forward. Again, there's a cliche that says, if you want things to stay the same, then make no changes. I think currently we absolutely do not want things to stay the same. Some things have been okay, some things have gone all right, but we're past that point of just being okay, of just being all right. It's time for us to move forward. It's time for us to make leaps and bounds forwards in all of these areas. And much what has been said tonight in regards to seniors, in regards to youth, in regards to our recreation, in regards to our roads, in regards to how council runs, in regards to this town as a whole, and to make it safer, to make it a great place to live. Again, the time is now, and the choice is yours to be able to make that change right now. And through that, we can do that together going forward. Thank you.
Andrew.
All right, thank you. Are we on? Okay. All right, thank you so much. First of all, thank you to the Chamber and all participants for putting this on tonight. There's a lot of effort involved with this, and can't thank you enough for all you're doing and continue to do for the rest of the candidates as well. And I want to thank my two colleagues here for putting their name forward as well for the mayoral candidates, and or the rest of the council candidates as well. I give a lot of credit to anybody that will put their name forward, all of the belief looking to make their community better. So that's very important, very commendable. Overall for myself, I've said it before, I'll say it again, I've been very fortunate to be part of two very proactive councils in the past, and accomplished quite a lot overall. And I very much look forward to a third very proactive council and accomplishing great things as well. Also, can't say enough about the fact that our team Tabor is building a better community for tomorrow. And I will also ask you, suggest that all residents please use your democratic right to vote and get out and vote. It is your right to do so and affects all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of the candidates for coming and explaining their platform. We'll take a short break for a few minutes while we get set up for the MD candidates that start at 7 o'clock. So thank you all for participating, and we'll join back in a few minutes. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We're starting just a little bit later than we'd expected. My name is Debbie Rutledge, and I'll be the moderator for the evening, and we'll also be asking the questions to the candidates. I'd like to remind everyone to please turn off your cell phones before we can begin. The washrooms are out this door and around the corner, and in case of an emergency, the emergency exits are back through those doors and around the corner or out through the front entrance. The evening was divided into two parts, and we're beginning the second part right now. It will run from just after 7 till about 8:30. A reminder that this is not a debate format, but one where the candidates can express their views or explain their positions. We'll begin with the rules. Each candidate will be given up to 5 minutes to introduce him or herself and present their platform. Speeches will be timed and lights will be used to indicate when your time is up. The light will go on at 4 minutes, it'll be green. At 4.5, the yellow light will go on, and at 5 minutes, the red light will come on. And at this time, I'll ask you to stop. For the questions, you will be allowed 3 minutes to respond. The green light will go on at 2 minutes, at 2.5, the yellow, and at 3 minutes, the red. I'll introduce the candidates. We've got Division 3, Frank Cast. Division 4, Ben Elfring and Taber Municipal. And Division 5, Jennifer Croson. We've got Division 1 was Merrill Harris, and he was acclaimed. Division 2 was John Tricotto, and he was acclaimed. Division 6 was Murray Reynolds, and he was acclaimed. And Division 7 was Chantal Balquio, and she was acclaimed. Earlier this evening, the candidates drew for speaking order, so we'll begin with our introductions from Frank. Frank?
Hello, I'm Frank Cast. I'm trying to represent Division 3. I've lived in Grassy Lake all my life. And the last 24 years I've been with the MD of Tabor, working there. Of those 15 years was, as I was doing my regular job as fire chief out there for 15 years. And I started out as Hamlet foreman at Grassy. And I went on to a grader maintaining roads. And then I went back to the Hamlet and then transferred down to Highway 3 Regional Water. So I've had a number of different jobs, and I've kind of green at politics, but I think I've got a good experiences behind me. So hopefully it all works out for me.
Thank you. Ben?
After much discussion with my family and citizens of Division 4, I decided to put my name in the ring for councillor for our division. The municipality is facing many challenges. The tax shift, monumental consequences is soon coming. Currently, the MD of Tabor collects approximately 70% of its property tax revenue from non-residential properties, including a considerable percentage of that from lineal properties, including oil and gas wells and pipelines. With a decline of the oil and gas industry in the MD of Tabor, millions of dollars of uncollected property taxes will in all likelihood be required to be written off. As a result of this, a shift of how property taxes are going to be collected is going to occur. Residential property taxes owners, small businesses and farmers will be bearing an increased burden of property tax loaded in the coming years. I will be strong voice for property owners to ensure all is being done to collect unpaid property taxes and to ensure that the cost of operating the MD is fairly and equally distributed. Policing costs, and in the future of the RCMP, the provincial policy model will see provincial policing costs rise to approximately $585 million in 2024, in addition to how policing is funded, and those costs passed down to the property owners, the government of Alberta is proposing to replace the RCMP with provincial police force with little information about timelines, future costs, and effectiveness. We need a strong, experienced, and serious voice expressing the concerns of the citizens of Division 4. Municipal lands. With the expansion of irrigation, the MD of Taber increasing pressure is coming to bear on the municipal council to sell grassland and convert it to irrigation. Discussions with current council has been conducted with individuals and corporations discussing the future of MD-owned land behind closed doors. With nearly 90,000 acres of land, the MD is the largest landowner, second only to the province of Alberta, within the MD of Taber. When this land was transferred, assurances were given to protect this land from breaking for cultivation. It would never have been transferred otherwise. With the long-term lease soon coming to an end, and it is not surprising to see those looking to make a quick buck using influence to try and purchase this ecologically sensitive land. Whatever the decision that is made collectively by the citizens of the MD of Taber with respect to this property, the decision must be made publicly and openly, not piecemeal behind closed doors to satisfy the greed of a few individuals. It is my absolute pledge that I will do whatever is necessary to ensure a full public accounting and transparency as the MD considers the future of this land. Over the past 4 years, I have observed with some interest what the MD of Taber has accomplished. It appears as if the capital projects involved or inventory identified by the prior council was indeed correctly identified, and it was those projects which were largely undertaken year after year during their 4-year term. Apart from chaos, I am not certain what accomplishments the casual observer could attribute to this council. In my time at council, we worked together to develop 2 regional water cooperatives, successfully transfer nearly 60,000 acres of tax recovery land, undertake regional projects of all types, which manifestly improved the life of MD citizens. I have served as the chair for Subdivision and Development Authority and zone director for Provincial Rural Association, worked closely with library boards and regional library services, and developed relationships with local, provincial, and federal officials which have benefited the citizens of the MD of Taber. I look forward to serving you once again as councillor for Division 4 of the MD of Taber.
Tamara.
Good evening, I'm Tamara Mianega. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and our moderator Deb and the Sugartown Sweet Talkers for having us this evening. Congratulations to the incumbent, the members of council who were acclaimed. As an incumbent, the question should be asked, why should I have the privilege of staying at the table? So for me, I have lived in Taber and the MD of Taber for 30 years. During that time, I have worked passionately for the good of our community, not just at a political level, but at a social level, ensuring that health and activities for our children and the wellness of our community were promoted. On council, during our term, the council made sure we maintained taxes. We had to find fiscal responsible ways as the government downloading and increased uncollectible taxes forced the MD to improve operational, administrative, and council efficiencies. We wanted to ensure that the burden wasn't passed on to the taxpayer, and we wanted to also ensure that the services maintained a high level, and we found ways that we could operate. During our term on council, many projects were completed, including the Highway 3 truck stop, the MD Trail, the Township Road Drainage Project, as well as the recovery from the 2018 flood. The 2018 flood is a prime example of the importance that the MD of Tabor has to work with our neighbors and our residents, our irrigation partners. Infrastructure was saved and recovered at a rate that wouldn't have happened if everyone didn't set their differences aside and work together. As we move forward, the $47 million drainage project is ready to go, with $39 million of that being grants. Again, showing collaboration with all of our municipal neighbors, irrigation companies, and businesses who will be involved and impacted to ensure that any future floods could cause a massive infrastructure, it will now be saved. I want to continue serving the MD of Tabor residents. On our council, we worked hard to make sure that the residents' needs were addressed, but our prime focus is our road network. Over 80% of the residents live rurally. If they can't get to town or move their products, there'll be no way that the MD can continue to operate efficiently. Priorities for me are also ensuring that our taxes are fair and that MD resources positively impact all residents. A big part of being on council is serving committees. Those committees ensure that our communities are well served recreationally with safe water, and also making sure that transportation and housing are effective. Committee work is a requirement, but also it's important that as a member of council you are involved in the community, and I will continue to do that. I care about our community and I want the best for our residents. Everything I've done in the 4 years has been to improve the MD of Tabor. There have been challenges, but we are positioned to capitalize on the irrigation expansion acres and the Highway 320. To ensure we're ready, we'll need to make available water, improved internet, and other resources that will be beneficial to our residents and potential businesses. It has been an honor to serve the MD of Tabor. I have seen remarkable things during these 4 years that the residents have helped. Our fire department, which is all based on volunteers, has ensured our safety. I feel I'm ready to continue, and I have ideas that will make sure we're operating at an efficient level. Tabor is a very important place. The MD has so many opportunities for our agriculture with our irrigation, and I look forward to serving the residents, bringing forward their needs and finding solutions. Thank you.
Jennifer.
Good evening. Thank you to the Chamber for hosting as well. I could echo a lot of what Tamar's already spoke to. However, I'm not going to repeat anything that she said. So myself, I am a resident of Division 5, which is the Hayes area. It's a community I've been a part of for more than 20 years. And my roots go back to being heavily involved in my community. A while back, I got involved with the Horizon School Division, so that's where my governance experience had begun. One important role in being a counselor or sitting on any governance structure is knowing your role. I think the council of the time has definitely learned as we've gone what our role is and have continued to do that. One thing that was a hot topic, of course, was our relationships with partnering municipalities. I feel that over the last 4 years, we've been able to grow and learn as a group, as well as along with our co-partners and the municipal partners that we work with. I would like to just firstly say that I'm grateful to have served the residents of Division 5 and the MD of Tabor for the last 4 years. 2 years as deputy brief. Our council has worked hard and accomplished many things for the betterment of the MD and its residents. We started our term with 5 new councillors and hit the ground running. We saw fires, floods, major snowstorms, key administration changes, coupled with declining oil and gas revenues and unpaid municipal taxes, which we've continued to advocate for on a local and provincial and somewhat federal level. We've completed the last 18 plus months of our term in the middle of a pandemic, which, with ever-changing rules and guidelines and the most challenging circumstances of, I believe, all of our lifetimes, through all of this, we as a council have pulled together and continued our work so that there was little direct impact to our residents. We have been resilient and committed to our roles in these turbulent times. I would ask for your vote so that I can continue to proudly represent the residents of my division and the MD of Tabor at a local, provincial, and federal level. The saying goes, you will never work a day in your life if you love what you do. I can honestly say that I have thoroughly enjoyed working with a group of people that I've worked with the last 4 years. Every day hasn't always been easy, but there hasn't been a day that I wasn't willing to walk through the doors of that building and start over or continue on or make a decision. One thing that's really guided us over the last few years is a strategic plan. We made a commitment as a council and as an administration team to go through a strategic plan in which we partnered with a company that helped lead the way. And one of the main things that came out of our strategic plan was we were going to try. So when I say try, it's an acronym for transparency, integrity, and respect. We built transparency on honest, factual, relevant, timely information for all of our decisions. Integrity, we continue to be professional and accountable and perform ethically within our policies and bylaws and the law. We were respectful. We were approachable and had positive relationships. We would also be guided by respecting each other in a way of considering others' opinions and support for one another. We may not have always agreed on everything, but we still continue to agree moving forward from the council table and council motion. So as I say that, I will close with, I guess we're not closing till later, but I would just like to continue to have the opportunity to serve my community. I do feel like there's a lot of challenges that we're gonna have moving forward, one of which will definitely be declining oil and gas. I do feel that being in public service is for not the faint at heart, because it's not always the easiest job, but it's definitely a rewarding job. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight.
We'll begin with the questions from the public. What do you feel are the 3 most important issues facing the MD? We'll begin with Frank.
From everybody that I've talked to in my area, roads are number 1. Number 2 is oil and gas revenue and tax revenue. And in my area, water is a big concern, the price of water in Grassy Lake. And I can't think of anything to add to that.
Ben.
I would think roads, taxation, getting the rest of our tax recovery land back, which is about 20,000 acres. One thing we need to do too is create revenue, whether it's business, plants, just find different ways of collecting revenue because of the decline in oil and gas. That's about it.
Tamara?
As echoed, roads is the most important, but with that has to be, how are we going to maintain them and find a gravel supply that can carry the MD into the future. The finding alternate means of taxation, since we have declining oil and gas, would be to ensure we have internet and water, so that when businesses are wanting to come, we are able to adapt to their needs. And the other one will be, how can we balance between what the demands of the residents' services are and taxation? And so again, that circles back to ensuring that we increase our assessment.
Jennifer?
First and foremost, of course, would be roads. I feel that roads are definitely the most important. We need to continue the level of service that we have currently, and as well as maintaining that for safety purposes for our residents. The second one that I would say would be the oil and gas decline and or lack of tax collection tax collection. So I feel like moving forward, we're going to be need to be innovative on trying to replace that loss of assessment, along with continuing to advocate with the province for stronger legislation for that uncollectible tax that we currently are not collecting. It's not unique to the MD, it's also a provincial issue. And then specifically for my area would be the lands and the grazing leases, and what our plan is going forward and how to support the residents in my division so that they're able to have a strong voice at the table.
What are your ideas for replacing revenue from oil and gas? Ben?
Well, one thing I've been kind of researching is carbon credits. With all this land that the MD has, we put a negative footprint on carbon. Reading in the Cattle Commission news, they are investigating carbon credits that we could sell. How much it is, I don't know. I haven't got any of that information back yet. But with all these acres that we have, 90,000 acres, I would imagine that it would be quite substantial. That's one of them. Industry is another, with the irrigation coming on. I think we have huge opportunities for fertilizer plants, different plants.
Tamara?
So the MD is well positioned to find ways, but we need to be ready to increase our assessment and offset the revenue. With the highway being twinned, improved irrigation, acres, and the already world-class level of agriculture, we need to be able to have those services and resources ready for people to invest. It is not my idea, but I will definitely continue to support it. Renew Well came to the MD of Taber with looking at small-scale solar on abandoned well sites. This will provide a means of revenue as well, find a use for these abandoned well sites. So that's definitely an option that we could look at. And ensuring that the businesses who are here are already having their needs met. And those businesses include farms and operationals, not just the big businesses. We need to make sure the small ones are thriving as well.
Jennifer?
We used to look at replacing revenue from, or replacing the lost revenues from oil and gas are definitely there's many options to look at. I think one thing that we must do is definitely diversify and find other ways. Some of those examples could be through examples that other candidates have shared this evening, but I think we also have to start looking at taxation a little bit differently as well. I think that we're not able to just look at one thing specifically, and going forward we're going to have to lay it out on the table and look to see what we will actually have at the table to make decisions on.
The next question. Do you believe the MD should invest directly in green energy? Tamara?
So we've had that conversation at the table, and personally I think green energy is a reasonable resource. It's starting to be proven time and again that at a small scale it's manageable. At an MD level, taking tax dollars and investing on a large scale, that's not anything I'm interested in as of yet. It's not proven itself as far as the end of life, and the acres that we have are being utilized functionally right now, and it would take a lot to prove what will be best beneficial as far as green acres. Now, I do think green energy at a local level, at our water plants, at our MD shop site, and our other shops that are located throughout might be a reasonable and a easily adaptable resource.
Jennifer?
So do I believe that the MD should invest in green energy? I would echo exactly what Taber just said as far as being able to utilize green energy for our own infrastructure. I think going forward as well, investing in green energy may not look like a direct investment, but I do feel that we can look at green energy in a way of where green energy would be suitable. so we can look at our resources and our lands and where those lands may be and where those types of green energy can also be set up. And when I say green energy, it's, for example, a solar farm. So if in the event that there's someone that comes to us that's looking for space, we should be able to have options for where that would be suitable and for the least amount of impact to the environment and or agricultural producers.
Frank, now I apologize, Frank, I did not ask you that last question, so we're going to ask you right now to answer both of those questions. We'll start with, what are your ideas for replacing revenue from oil and gas?
As the new kid on the block, I'm kind of deferring to all the smart people that work for the MD of Tabor as in the administration and council members, and then just listen and pay attention to what people come up with ideas.
And do you believe the MD should invest directly in green energy?
I think it would be a good idea on places like Tamara said, the water plants, the shops. To be a commercial venture, I don't think anyone in the MD is really ready to do that. So I think at a small scale, yes, it would be a good plan.
I agree.
Ben?
I agree on a small scale level, it probably would be a good idea. Large scale, no, not yet.
Next question. How long have you lived in the community, and how are you involved in the community? I will start with Jennifer.
Okay, so I've lived in Division 5 for just over 20 years, and I've been involved in the community ever since I actually moved there. The start of my community service began with Hayes Civic Center, which is a community board, which I currently still sit on. And from there, I also became an active member of the Vauxhall Agricultural Society, which I'm still also a member of. And then as my kids have grown, I've also been involved in the school and in sports and continue to do so. I do love my community. It's what makes it home for me. I didn't grow up here, but my roots are here and my kids' roots are here. Thank you.
Frank?
I've lived in Grassy 65 years. So everything I've done has been around Grassy Lake, and I've been on just about every board and committee in Grassy, including coaching sports teams for kids when my kids were growing up. Like I said earlier, 15 years as volunteer fire chief. I was on local rec board, cemetery committee, and then just most recently I've been on as president of TEA here in Tabor, Tabor Exhibition Association.
Ben?
I lived in the town of Tabor for approximately 17 years and the MD 27 years. I am involved with the Tabor Shooting, MD Tabor Shooting Foundation. I'm the vice president, and basically the shooting sports are my hobby, and that's about it.
What is your biggest accomplishment in the last 4 years? Oh, pardon me, sorry, Tamara.
Shall I answer the first question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I moved to Tabor 30 years ago. I lived 1 year in the town, and at that time I had just graduated from the U of L in the Urban and Regional Studies program, so I worked for the town of Tabor. And then I got married, and for the last 29 years have lived in the MD of Tabor in the same home. And my involvement started right when I came here. I worked with the youth group, and for these last 25 years I've been involved with the Tabor Food Bank, St. Vincent de Paul, the Hospital Foundation, and different activities that have come up. That's what drives me, is to work on either youth or social initiatives in our community. I'm not going to list you the committees because that's not what it's about. It's about bringing other people together and doing the greater good for our community.
The next question. What is your biggest accomplishment in the past 4 years, specifically to the incumbents of being a councillor and for any new members or new candidates? Just generally, what is your biggest accomplishment in the past 4 years? And we'll begin with Frank.
Past 4 years, nothing political. Personal level, had a fight with cancer, still here.
Ben?
Enjoying retirement. Basically, listening to our ratepayers, their problems, their concerns, and that's about it.
Tamara?
On a council level, the entire council has had great success in the drainage project. At a personal level, that I really pushed on council was to help complete what was already started of the MD Trail. That was a big part, and that also is a display of the work we have done with our municipal partner, in this case, the town of Tabor, to create an excellent walking system. Personally, I think we've just kept moving the community forward, trying to be a builder, especially during COVID when everything has been divided. I have been out and about to make sure that people are feeling welcomed and involved in what we're doing. Thank you.
Jennifer?
I feel one of the biggest accomplishments in the last 4 years has not been done on my sole shoulders. I feel it has been done with the group of 6 people that I get to work with to guide the MD of Tabor. And I feel that the biggest accomplishment was revamping and continuing on with new governance and being guided by our bylaws and any new bylaws that we may have created. Since our job is governance, I feel like that was our biggest feat. We were able to accomplish, I think, giving 25 bylaws and or policies new readings moving forward. So I feel like that's great as a group, and just to continue to work together as a respectful group. On a personal level, I think my biggest accomplishment in the last 4 years has been able to balance my life of being a mom and a mom that is active with her kids, and that being a municipal councillor is something that I do truly love, and I love that my kids get to see that this is something that I've chosen to guide my life right now, and that my kids can see that I can do anything I put my mind to while still making my family a priority.
The next question. What is your opinion of the roads in the county, in particular with the gravel and the grading? Ben?
I think it's been fairly well gravelled and maintained. I know when I was on council, we had 3 priority routes. I don't know if it is that way now anymore. They seem to be doing a very, very well job in our operations and maintenance.
Tamara?
Yes, we do still have our priority road system. Now, I drive the roads quite often, and I've driven them a lot during this election, and definitely the weather, the dryness has made it more challenging for our grader operators to get the washboards out. So we have a new plan on how we're looking after our roads with shoulder pulling, and we're seeing a definite improvement at making them cost efficient. I don't think any of us would ever say the roads are the best they could ever be. There's always room for improvement, and the graveling though is done very well, and we'll continue to support the grader operators so that they can have the opportunity to grade them so that the roads are safe and passable.
Jennifer?
My opinion on roads is of course good. I would echo what Tamara has said. However, one thing I'd like to add is that over the last 4 years, we've also implemented something called asset management, so that our staff is able to keep us informed as to the condition of our roadways, and we changed our maintenance of our roadways from going away from heavy construction to heavy maintenance and maintaining the road structures that we have and not acquiring anything new.
Frank?
Roads are a bit of a challenge, mostly because our traffic has changed so much in the last 10 years. The number of big trucks and the size of the big trucks. So there's a lot and the speed of trucks and all traffic. So it's challenging for the grader operators. They have a lot of areas that they are very sensitive, I guess you'd call it. The sandy areas are really hard to maintain. They wash very quick, they pound out quick. But overall, I think the roads are in really decent shape.
Will you advocate for no tax increases? Tamara?
No, I won't. I'll be quite clear. When we look at our budget, we do the very best to be lean and fiscally responsible, but there are things that need to be done. The roads need to be maintained, the water plants need to operate. We have many things that have to happen. So to say I'll advocate for zero tax, ultimately just stating that and putting that in place will mean that residents in the future will suffer to try to make up the difference. So I will advocate for efficient budgets and improved operations so that all the tax dollars that are collected are used well and fairly, but I won't say a zero tax.
Jennifer?
I will also echo what Tamara just said. I don't think that I could reasonably say that I could advocate for no tax increase. What I could advocate for is to continue to be fiscally responsible and keep a tight, lean budget with minimal tax increases as they are needed. And I forgot what I was going to say next. But I do feel that, I mean, taxes are essential to our business. That is how we're able to do the work that we do for the MD and for our residents. And fiscal responsibility is key in this business. So I can't say that I would advocate for a zero tax increase.
Frank?
I couldn't advocate for zero tax. We still have to, like Tamara and Jen has already stated, that we have a big MD to look after. And times have changed. Everything else has gone up in price. Electricity's higher. Every product that we use and buy has gone up in price. There's no reason why taxes would lower or stay the same.
Ed?
No, I would not go for a tax, or a zero tax. Taxes are a funny thing. It goes by the assessed value. If your assessed value of your property goes down, your taxes go down. If the assessed value of your property goes up, your taxes go up. And to me, it's hard to balance that. The only other way you can do it is tightening your budget or looking for other streams of revenue.
Next question. What do you think is the #1 issue in your division that needs to be addressed? Jennifer?
The #1 issue in my division that needs to be addressed, and I would only say that I can say that this needs to be addressed because I've had residents tell me. I don't know that every resident is telling me what their #1 issue would be, but in my area, it would be what we're going to do with our lands. And when I say that, our lease lands or our grasslands, essentially. My division has the largest land mass in the municipal district of Tabor, and a large portion of that is grassland. So an essential way of life in my division is ranching and cattle, as well as agricultural farming operations. It's not an area where we have a lot of intensive agriculture, but we do have irrigation, but it looks different than irrigation even closer to Vauxhall or in the Tabor area. There is very few square pieces of land in my division, so it makes things interesting, but it would most definitely be how we're going to address land issues moving forward.
Frank?
From everybody I talked to, probably the biggest concern is price of water in Grassy Lake. The people out in the country that I talked to, about every third one said do something with the roads, but we maintain the roads now, so unless there's a major change in how we maintain those roads, I don't know that we can do much different. Water issue, I think there's been a meeting here with the MD Council, and part of it's an education problem, part of it's come to grips with reality. We live in a desert.
Ben?
Abandoned wells and orphan wells in my division, our division, and soil erosion and weeds on these abandoned wells and orphan wells. No one's taking care of them. It's a weed problem. Weeds are 4 feet tall, blowing into the neighbors' fields, and it's beginning to be a big problem. And the soil erosion, some of the fields aren't getting seeded in the fall, and they're starting to blow.
Taber?
So in Division 4, definitely roads is a big issue. People need to get from A to B, but we are blessed with having 3 highways in Division 3. So having to find ways to maintain those roads would lead to really the primary, and that's to ensure that we bring in economic development so that taxes are lower. The division is concerned that they don't want to pay too much. We have a lot of acreage owners who are paying and they would like the services, but it is important then that we find ways to increase our assessment, and that means bringing in businesses that will help our division.
Next question. Should elected officials have term limits? Is having a separate fire station, one in town and one for the rural, a good idea? So that's really actually 2 questions. Frank?
The way the fire divisions are set up now, each area has a fire station, and you have to be able to draw volunteers. So you'd have to have some, like here, we're close to Barnwell, but Tabor should have one just for the fact that we can draw volunteers out of the town of Tabor. And without the volunteers, you don't have a fire department. And your first question was, I forgot.
Should elected officials have term limits?
Well, I think that's a personal priority. They figure they can do the job and want to carry on. I think they should have at it.
Ben?
Well, I think that's up to the electorate. Experience is huge when you sit on council, and the only way you're going to get experience is putting in your years. So that's my answer to that question. I don't think it should be set in stone. The other question with the fire department, we have 7 fire stations in the MD of Tabor. We collaborate with the town of Vauxhall and the village of Barnwell. So basically each region has a fire hall, fire station. The reason we went that way is when this all came about 4 years ago, all of our stations weren't getting the proper training. They were using different equipment. So when we went on our own, we got better training. We have over 120, I think, volunteers. It's been a huge success. Now, working with our partners, it's worked out well for the village and for the town of Vauxhall. So it's working well.
Tamara?
I really feel the voters will decide on term limits. I don't think there's any reason for us to put those in place. The question, should there be 2 fire halls in town, I assume is a question directed to the town of Tabor and the MD of Tabor having fire halls within 10 blocks of one another. I don't think it's a good idea. I think the 7 stations 5 years ago were operating well, but needed to have some efficiencies. We needed to find a funding model that worked. And so the 2 councils couldn't come to an agreement to find a solution. So the solution was create the MD Fire Department. Now, the MD Fire Department has been incredibly successful. The volunteers, the training, the standardization of equipment, I think that's worked well. Now, the town of Tabor has amazing volunteers as well. So I think it is time, as I thought 5 years ago, that they should find a way to work together and have a solution that makes sure our residents and our community are the safest they can be, and not worry about who's going to what accident or what fire call. Let's make sure our residents are taken care of and optimize the expertly trained men and women who serve out of any of the fire halls that are in the town, the MD, or our villages. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Jennifer,
Can you please repeat the part 2 question?
part 2 question. Is having a separate fire stations, one in town and one for the rural, a good idea?
Okay, thank you. So I will answer the first question first. Should elected officials have term limits? I would echo what most of the candidates have said as well tonight, is that it should be up to the electorate or the individual that's running for whichever office they choose. I do have to say though that I feel that there's a lot of value in what I would call a veteran elected official. There's a lot of knowledge that goes with that, and a lot of mentorship that also comes along with that for new councils as you have changeover in your council. Now, part 2, do I feel that it's a good idea to have one in town, one in rural? Firstly, I would say right now what we have is working, but I also want to recognize that we have 2 completely different services. So I want to say that maybe there's efficiencies we could make moving forward, but we also do work 2 different ways. Not that they can't be intertwined or anything like that, but all of our volunteers are the key and the backbone to that, and what we have right now is working, but going forward, who knows what kind of efficiencies could be made in that way.
Tamara, did you have a question?
That concludes the questions that we have received online. There are no other questions, so we are going to wind up with our concluding remarks. We'll begin again at the beginning with Frank.
I'd like to thank you for putting this on and for giving us the opportunity. Other than that, I really don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Ben.
I'd like to thank the chamber for putting this on, and hopefully it gives some views on the topics that were presented to us. I've had the honor and privilege to serve the residents of Division 4 and the rest of the MD of Tabor for 14 years. In that time, I've sat on numerous boards, such as Town Rec Board, Tabor District Housing, Library Boards, chaired the Subdivision Development Board, director of the Old Man River Regional Services Commission, director of the MD of Tabor Shooting Foundation, Local and Composite Assessment Review Board, and many, many more. Some of the accomplishments I have been involved with were lobbying and receiving 90% funding from the province for 2 regional water commissions. One in Vauxhall, which supplies potable water to Vauxhall, Hayes, and Enchant. The second one was in Bow Island, which supplies water to Bow Island, Grassy, and Burdett. The MD is the managing partner in both of these plants. With these 2 systems, we were able to decommission 5 aging plants. This also shows how collaboration with our neighboring municipalities, the town of Bow Island, the county of 40 Mile, and the MD of Tabor. Lobbying and receiving nearly 60,000 acres of tax recovery land back to the MD with approximately 20,000 to go. Securing gravel reserves in 3 new gravel pits. Helping build the MD of Taber shooting range with nearly 900 members from all over southern Alberta. Hosting many shooting disciplines, it also is used by Taber, Lethbridge, Calgary, and RCMP police services and their tactical teams. Also sheriff, fish and game, our fish and wildlife, and border services. The MD Regional Fire Services is working with the town of Vauxhall and the village of Barnwell, which operates 7 stations with over 100 volunteers. There are many, many more projects that these were just a few. Lobbying for the twinning of Highway 3, the Vauxhall truck stop and rest area, the horsefly drainage, and many other projects have finally paid off. In closing, I have the experience and knowledge working with the province, municipalities, and council to make our MD stronger, healthier, and more productive. On October 18th, let my experience be your voice. It's a wise choice. Please vote then.
Tamara.
Thank you for the opportunity, and to those watching online. I care about the MD of Taber, and I want what's best for our residents. I will continue to ask the hard questions at the council chamber, but I will also help with finding a solution. Moving forward, we need to ensure that we are fiscally responsible and that we continue to work with our neighbors to find efficiencies. We're not going to be able to generate money heavily on taxes. Individuals can't afford to carry the MD, so we need to do the work. I want to continue to work at the committee level and to ensure our community is progressive. We have a great municipality, and I have been honored to serve at the council level with my colleagues, and I want to continue to be at the table to find solutions so that we can continue to have a great place to farm, have a business, and raise our families. And I am the person who will continue to work hard, not just at the council level, but in our community. Thank you for the privilege of serving these last 4 years. On October 18th, I hope you will come out to vote, and I ask for your support. Thank you.
Jennifer.
Thank you. Thanks again to the chamber and also those online tonight that have joined us. I would like to just finish off by saying I would love to be able to have the opportunity to continue to be a strong voice. I've self-labeled myself the political geek. I am guided through governance and working with a team of 6 great friends that I've had the last few years. I've always liked to refer to council as a group of my friends, because at the end of the day, that's who I make decisions with. I don't get to do anything all by myself, so I've always wanted to consider them friends. Going forward, I think being a council person is never something for the faint of heart. And I would encourage all the residents that usually when there's a lot of excitement and misinformation, phone your councilor and ask questions, because I feel that that excitement always comes from a lack of understanding or knowledge. I'd like to continue to serve my residents and all of the residents of the MD of Taber. I know that we're not always going to get everything right, but we can always fix what we got wrong, and going forward, we can do our best to get it all right. So I would ask that on October 18th, you vote for me so I can continue to work along with my friends and continue to advocate for the residents of the MD of Taber as well as the residents of Division 5. Thank you.
I'd like to thank all of our candidates for presenting their platforms and giving our public a chance to get to know you a little bit. I'd especially like to thank the Chamber for putting in all of the work to host this event. And I'd also like to remind everyone that we'll be hosting a forum for the town councillors tomorrow night, starting at 6:30 until about 9:30. So please take the time to join in. Have a good night, everyone, and don't forget to vote on Monday, October 18th.